The Monkey and the Crab. Ryūnosuke Akutagawa. The monkey who had stolen the crab's rice ball was at last brought to justice. The crab, together with a mortar, a bee, and an egg, killed its mortal enemy, the monkey. That part of the tale need not be retold. What truly matters is what fate befell the crab and its companions after their vengeance was fulfilled. For the fairy tale says nothing of that. In fact, it gives the impression that all was well, that the crab lived peacefully in its burrow, the mortar rested undisturbed in a kitchen corner, the bee returned to its hive beneath the eaves, and the egg slumbered quietly in a box of rice husks, as if they all led tranquil, uneventful lives thereafter. But that was a lie. After exacting their revenge, they were all arrested by the police and thrown into prison. Following a series of trials, the crab, deemed the ringleader, was sentenced to death, while the mortar, the bee, and the egg, as accomplices, received life imprisonment. Readers who know only the fairy tale may find this outcome puzzling. But it is the truth. It is an undeniable, unquestionable fact. According to the crab's own account, it had exchanged a rice ball for a persimmon. Yet the monkey not only failed to give a ripe persimmon, offering only unripe ones, but also pelted the crab with them, causing injury. However, the crab and the monkey had exchanged no written contract. Even putting that aside, the crab never specified that the persimmon had to be ripe. As for the assault with the unripe persimmons, there was insufficient evidence to prove malicious intent on the monkey's part. Thus, the famed orator who took up the crab's defense could do little more than appeal to the judge's sympathy. He reportedly wiped the crab's foam with pity and said, "Resign yourself." Whether he meant resign yourself to the death sentence or to the large fee he had charged, no one could say for certain. Moreover, the public opinion expressed in newspapers and magazines showed almost no sympathy for the crab. The crab's act of killing the monkey, they said, was nothing more than a result of personal resentment. And wasn't that resentment simply the crab's irritation at being taken advantage of due to its own ignorance and rashness? In a world where the strong thrive and the weak perish, to give vent to such personal grudge was, if not foolish, then downright mad. So went the common criticism. In fact, a certain baron, head of the Chamber of Commerce, opined along similar lines, concluding that the crab's murder of the monkey was likely influenced, at least in part, by the dangerous ideologies then in vogue. Perhaps as a precaution, it was said that after the crab's vendetta, the baron not only hired bodyguards but also began keeping 10 bulldogs. Nor did the crab's vendetta receive any praise from the so-called intellectual circles. A certain university professor, a doctor of ethics, remarked that the crab's act was clearly motivated by a desire for revenge, and that revenge, from a moral standpoint, could hardly be called virtuous. A prominent socialist leader noted that the crab's attachment to private property, be it a persimmon or a rice ball, was in itself problematic, and suggested that the mortar, bee, and egg must have shared similarly reactionary views. Perhaps, he speculated, the whole affair had been incited by the National Essence Society. A high priest from a certain Buddhist sect commented that the crab clearly lacked Buddhist compassion. Even if it had been struck by unripe persimmons, had it understood the spirit of Buddhist mercy, it would have pitied the monkey rather than hated him. "Ah," he sighed. "If only I'd had the chance to deliver a single sermon to that crab." Others of distinction across various fields also offered their critiques, but none voiced support for the crab's revenge. Among them, only one man dared speak in the crab's defense. a hard-drinking poet who also happened to be a member of parliament. He declared that the crab's actions were in keeping with the spirit of Bushido. But such an outdated argument was unlikely to resonate with anyone. What's more, gossip columns claimed that this lawmaker had once been urinated on by a monkey during a visit to the zoo, a grudge he apparently never forgot. Readers who know only the fairy tale may shed sympathetic tears for the crab's tragic fate. But the crab's death was just. To feel pity for it is nothing more than the sentimentality of women and children. The world deemed the crab's execution righteous. Indeed, it is said that on the night the sentence was carried out, the judge, the prosecutor, the defense attorney, the guards, the executioner, and the prison chaplain all slept soundly for 48 hours straight. What's more, they each dreamed of the gates of heaven, a heaven that, according to their accounts, resembled a department store modeled after a feudal castle. And while we're at it, a few words should be said about what became of the crab's family after his death. His wife became a prostitute. Whether it was poverty that drove her to it or her own disposition remains unclear. The crab's eldest son, according to the language of newspapers and magazines, completely reformed himself after his father's death. He is now said to be working as a manager at a stock brokerage or something of the sort. This particular crab once dragged an injured companion into his burrow and consumed his flesh. It was this crab that Kropotkin cited in Mutual Aid as an example of how crabs care for one another. The second son became a novelist. As is typical for such a profession, he did nothing but fall in love with women. Using his father's life as an example, he spun out glib and cynical lines like goodness is just another name for evil. The third son, being a fool, remained nothing more than a crab. One day, while scuttling sideways, he came across a rice ball, his favorite food. He picked it up with the tip of his large claw. Just then, a monkey grooming lice from its fur up in a tall persimmon tree. Well, there's no need to finish that story. In any case, one thing remains certain. Once a crab has fought a monkey, he will inevitably be killed. For the sake of society. These words I offer to readers everywhere. You, too, are mostly crabs.